Good morning, students. I hope all of you remember what was done in the previous period. Students, in the previous period, we studied about the different type of blood vessels like arteries, veins, and capillaries. Now, students, today we will study about the course of blood flow in the heart, like how the blood is going to be pumped from the heart. Now students, all of you know that the heart in case of human being is four chambered. Okay, so now let's see how is the blood flow in the heart. Okay, now students, the four chambers of the heart are, this is the right auricle and this is the left auricle. This is the right ventricle and this is the left ventricle. So these are the four chambers of the heart. Now, the auricles are the upper chambers of the heart. Auricles does the function of receiving the blood, that is collecting the blood. Since it is receiving the blood or collecting the blood, it has got thin walls. Whereas the lower chambers are called as the ventricles. Now the ventricles are the pumping chambers because they pump the blood. Now since they are the pumping chambers, they are thick walled. Now, as you know that there are two auricles, the right auricle and the left auricle. Now, these two auricles are separated by a partition called as the interauricular septum. And the two ventricles also separated by means of a septum which is called as the interventricular septum. See, I am showing you the interventricular septum. This is interventricular septum. Now, students, this was regarding the chambers of the heart. Now we have to study the course of blood flow. To study the course of blood flow, we will do one thing. We will divide the heart into two parts, that is the right hand part side and the left hand side. Now students, all of you can see the right hand side I have painted blue. Now that is because the blue color indicates the deoxygenated blood. And on the left side you can see I have painted red, that shows that it is oxygenated blood or pure blood. So now let's start with the course of blood flow. Okay. Now students, there are two big veins in our body. One is called as the superior vena cava and the other is called as the inferior vena cava. Superior, why? Because it is collecting the blood from the upper part of the body. Inferior, why? Because it is collecting the blood from the lower part of the body. So now now you will see how it is collecting the blood. Students, this is superior vena cava, this is your inferior vena cava. Both of them are opening into the right auricle. So the right auricle is getting the impure blood. The impure blood from the right auricle will enter into the right ventricle when the tricuspid valve will open. Can you see these two walls over here? Tricuspid valves. So when this tricuspid valve will open, at that time the impure blood from the right auricle will enter into the right ventricle. Now the right ventricle will get totally filled with blood. At that time, what happens to the tricuspid valve? It will close. It will close. When it closes, the ventricle will undergo contraction. So when the ventricle undergoes contraction, the blood is going to be pumped out of the heart. Okay, but you know that the tricuspid valve is closed. So now what is the way for the blood to come out? Now the blood will be coming out through an artery which is called as the pulmonary artery. You can see that this is the pulmonary artery. Near the opening of the pulmonary artery, can you see a valve called as a pulmonary valve? This valve will open and the blood will enter into the pulmonary artery, and you can see it is dividing into two parts so that it can enter into the lungs of its each side. Lungs of its each side. So it will divide it into two parts. So this was the course of blood flow on the right hand side of the heart. I will just once again draw and I will tell you. Now students, this is the superior vena cava. This is the inferior vena cava. Both of them opening into the right auricle. Impure blood, when the tricuspid valve will open, it is entering into the ventricle. From the ventricle, when the ventricle will undergo contraction, it will be pumped into the pulmonary artery, and you can see the pulmonary artery supplying the impure blood to the lungs of its own side so that the blood can be purified. So have you people understood the blood supply on the right hand side of the heart? Okay, now you can look at the slide. Superior and inferior vena cava carrying deoxygenated blood opening into the right auricle. The tricuspid valve opens, it enters into right ventricle. Tricuspid valve closes, ventricles contract. The impure blood enters into the pulmonary artery because the pulmonary valve opens and it goes to the lungs for purification. Now let's see the next slide. In that we will study the circulation in the left hand side of the heart. Now left hand side of the heart I have painted red, that means it is containing what type of blood, students? Pure blood. Now can you see here there are four of them. This four of them are called as the pulmonary veins. Can you see the pulmonary vein opening into the left auricle? Pulmonary veins carry what type of blood? Pure blood or oxygenated blood. So the pulmonary vein opens into the left auricle. So the left auricle contains what type of blood? Pure blood. Pure blood from the left auricle will enter into the left ventricle. When which wall will open? The bicuspid wall will open. The bicuspid wall is also called by the name mitral valve. Bicuspid wall or mitral valve. Now you can see the pure blood is entering into the left ventricle. When the left ventricle is totally filled with blood, at that time the bicuspid valve will close. When the bicuspid valve will close, at that time the blood from the left ventricle will enter into the aorta. Now this is the aorta. Students, here this is the aorta. At the base of the aorta, can you see this valve? This is called as the aortic valve. So this aortic valve will open and the blood will enter into the aorta. Aorta is the biggest artery of the body, and through the aorta it will be supplied to the different parts of the body. Is it clear to you? I will draw and show you how it is. So here you can see this is a pure blood entering into the left auricle. From the left auricle, when the bicuspid or the mitral valve will open, it will enter into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, it will slowly enter into the aortic arch. The opening of the aortic arch is guarded by the aortic valve. When the aortic valve will open, it will enter into the aorta, and from the aorta, it will be supplied to the different parts of the body. Is it clear to you, students? The course of blood flow on the left hand side of the heart. So here I have written pulmonary vein, oxygenated blood, passes it onto the left auricle. The bicuspid valve will open, it will enter into left ventricle. Bicuspid valve will close, the ventricles will undergo contraction, aortic valves will open, then it will enter into the aorta, and aorta will supply to different parts of the body. Okay, so I hope you have understood the course of blood flow on the right hand side and the left hand side of the human heart. Okay, students, now let us go to the next topic. Now the next topic you have is double circulation. Okay, now double circulation is the type of circulation found in case of animals which have got four-chambered heart, and this double circulation consists of two circulation, namely the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. Pulmonary circuit or pulmonary circulation is the circulation which is related with the lungs, and the systemic circuit or the systemic circulation may be the circulation which is related with the systems of our body. That means the blood moving to the different parts of the body and how the blood in the different part of our body will become impure. Okay, so in the next slide we will study the pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. Now let's see here, this is the pulmonary circulation. Now the pulmonary circulation is the portion of the double circulatory system which carry deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs and returns the oxygenated blood to left atrium and ventricle of the heart. Okay, so now let me enlarge and I tell you here. Now students, this is the right ventricle. Right hand side means what type of blood it is? Impure blood. Impure blood will be carried by the pulmonary artery. You know that pulmonary artery divides to form two branches to enter into the lungs of its own side. In the lungs, it is going to form the capillaries. Now the capillaries will help in the purification of the blood. You have seen that how diffusion takes place. Now the purified blood will be carried by the pulmonary vein. You know that the pulmonary vein will open into which auricle? Left auricle. So on this side, whatever you are seeing, that is the circulation. We are talking about the circulation in the lungs. And circulation in the lungs will be called as what circulation? Pulmonary circulation. So this is one circuit of double circulation which is called as a pulmonary circulation. Let's go to the next one, that is systemic circulation. Now systemic circulation, it carries the oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to through the arteries to the capillaries to the tissues of the body. And in the tissues of the body it will become what? Impure. Okay, from the tissue, the capillaries, the deoxygenated blood returns through a system of veins to the right atrium of the heart. So let's see here how it is. Left ventricle, you know the left hand side is going to contain what type of blood? Pure blood. Now the pure blood, you know, will enter into the aorta. You know that the aorta will divide to form branches, and the branches will be supplying the blood to the different parts of our body. The different parts of our body, it will supply it to the tissues. So it will form the tissue capillaries. Now you know that in the tissues the blood is going to become deoxygenated because there will be diffusion of gases. Now when the blood becomes deoxygenated, it is collected by the superior and inferior vena cava. And you know that the superior and inferior vena cava opens into the right auricle. So my dear students, here what you are seeing is nothing but you are seeing the circulation of blood to different organs and tissues. So this part of the circulation will be called as the systemic circulation. So students, you have studied the two parts of double circulation, that is the pulmonary circulation, that is the circulation in relationship with the lungs, and the systemic circulation, circulation in relation to the systems of our body which constitute your tissues. A tissue level we have spoken there. Okay, so that marks the end of your double circulation. Now let's go to our next topic, that is nothing but lymph. Now what is lymph? Lymph is a colorless fluid. Now why is it colorless? It is colorless because the RBC is absent. So lymph is a colorless fluid which escapes from the blood capillaries. And the lymph contains WBC, proteins, water, ions, carbon dioxide and other waste materials. So I just explained to you here. Now my dear students, this is a blood capillary. Through the blood capillary, now this is the blood which is moving. You can see inside the blood, you can see the RBCs. Now as the blood is moving through this blood capillaries, some part of the blood is going to ooze out. Some part of the blood is going to come out. And that part of the blood which oozes out is the one which will form the lymph. Okay. Now you can see here, this part is nothing but the liquid part which is oozed out. It is containing WBC. Can you see the WBC coming out of the blood capillaries? Can you see the proteins over here? Okay. And this water, the fluid which is containing WBC, proteins, ions and all this fluid is present in between the tissue. Because it is present in between the tissue cells, this fluid is also called as a tissue fluid. Now this tissue fluid which is being collected or which has been formed from the blood, because the blood is oozing from the capillary, this tissue fluid will be now collected by another capillary which is called as the lymph capillary. Once the lymph capillary collects this tissue fluid, now it will be called as lymph. Is it clear? So when the blood moves through the blood capillaries, some part of the blood is going to ooze out into the tissues and that will be called as a tissue fluid. Now this tissue fluid is taken up by a capillary which is called as the lymph capillary, and once it enters the lymph capillary, at that time for the tissue fluid we use the term as lymph. Okay students. Now let us study the next slide, and in the next slide you are going to study the lymphatic system. Now students, you know the tissue fluid is also called as the interstitial fluid. It enters into the lymph capillaries. Now here, so here you have a lymph capillary. You can see that many lymph capillaries will unite together to form what is called as a lymph vessel. The lymph vessel shows the presence of lymph nodes in between. Many of the lymph vessels will unite together to form a bigger one, which is called as a lymph duct. Now the lymph duct will finally join a vein, which is called as a subclavian vein. And this subclavian vein is a part of our circulatory system. That means it is a part of your venous system. That is, it is a part of your veins, which will drain it back into the heart. Okay. Now, so interstitial fluid, it will enter the lymph capillaries. Many lymph capillaries will join together to form a lymph vessel. Lymph vessel will have lymph nodes at intervals. Lymph nodes contains WBC, which provides protection to the body from pathogens. Many lymph vessels will unite together. Converge together means unite together to form a lymphatic duct. Now the lymphatic duct is called as the thoracic duct. Okay, on the left hand side, and on the right hand side it is called as a right lymphatic duct. Right hand side it is called as a right lymphatic duct. On the left hand side it is called as a thoracic duct. Now this lymphatic duct will again then empties the blood into the subclavian vein, as I told you, which is a part of your venous system. That is, it is a part of your vein, and finally it reaches the heart. So what fluid oozes out from the blood finally enters into the blood, okay, via this lymphatic system. That means whatever that interstitial fluid or the tissue fluid is there, it is collected by lymph capillaries, which unite together to form lymph vessel, which unite together to form the lymph duct, and the lymph duct finally empties the lymph into the subclavian vein, which is a part of our circulatory system. Is it clear to you, lymphatic system, students? Now let us see the functions of lymph. Yeah. Now in the functions of lymph, students, here can you see this is an artery. Artery is dividing to form smaller branches called arteriole. Arteriostate divides to form smaller branches called capillaries. Capillaries unite to form what is called venule. Many venules unite together to form what you call it as a vein. Now students, can you see this yellow markings, yellow colored circles? These are nothing but the cells. So the capillaries are in contact with the cells. Now you know that from the capillaries what is going to ooze out? The tissue fluid. And the tissue fluid is the one in which in future is going to form your lymph. So what is there inside that? Now this your tissue fluid that is going to the lymph, it contains fat, it contains glucose, amino acid, water, ions and oxygen. So it is supplying all these nutrients to the cell. At the same time, what else it is doing? Can you see the arrow in the opposite direction? It is collecting water, it is collecting carbon dioxide and other waste product and adding it into the veins. Okay, so now let's see the function. Now lymph removes the excess fluids from the body tissue. If we don't remove the excess fluid from the body tissue, it will result in swelling. Lymph will help in the absorption of fat. Lymph nodes produce WBCs, which provide protection to the body. Lymph collects the carbon dioxide and other waste. Now the second point, as I said, lymph vessel it is a lymph vessel which will help in the absorption of fat in the intestine. The second point. Okay. Now, so these are the functions of lymph. So now my dear students, with this we have completed with the transportation in case of animals. Now we have to start with the transportation in case of plants. Yeah. Now transportation in plants. Why do you require transportation in plants? Now transportation in plants is required to transport two essential things. One is the food and the other is the water. Water need to be transported from the root to the different parts, and the transport of water takes place with the help of tissue which is called as a xylem. Okay, whereas you know that the leaves prepare the food, so food from the leaves need to be supplied to the different parts of the plant, and that work is done by a tissue called as a phloem. Together, the xylem and phloem collectively they are called as a vascular tissue. Now, here I have just drawn a plan. Now in this, can you see the xylem? Can you see the xylem running in the upward direction? From the root it is running, so it is supplying the water. Now here, can you see the phloem which is starting from the leaves and it is running in both the directions, supplying the food in all the directions, upward and downward direction. Now, when I cut a stem, I get a structure like this. Can you see? This is the xylem and then this is the phloem. This is a cut part of a stem, so you get the structure like this, xylem and phloem. Can you see both of them are lying adjacent to each other, side by side? Okay. Now let's go to the next slide. Now, transportation of water. Now students, there are two mechanisms to explain the transportation of water. And the two mechanisms, one is a root pressure and the other is a transpiration pull. Now, why we have two mechanisms here? Because the transportation of water is dependent upon the distance between the root and the leaves. When I say leaves, the aerial parts, okay, between the root and the aerial parts. Because root is the part which is going to contain the water, and the water needs to be supplied all the way towards the leaves, because leaf is the place where the food is synthesized. So that distance is going to matter quite a lot. If the distance is small, then definitely the water is transported by a mechanism which is called as a root pressure. Okay, so now let's discuss about the root pressure. Now students, this is the soil. From the soil, the plants are going to take up minerals. Now the minerals are taken up by the plant by a process called active transport. Active transport is a transport in which the substances move from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. So when substances are moving from a lower concentration to a higher concentration, we need to supply energy. Since energy is required, this transport is called as active transport. At the same time, the water is absorbed by a process called as osmosis. Students, all of you know osmosis? Osmosis is a transfer or the movement of water from water's higher concentration to water's lower concentration when separated by a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, so now here there is an active transport of minerals and absorption of water by osmosis. When these two processes are taking place, there is a development of a positive pressure called as a root pressure inside the root. And this root pressure will help in pumping the water into the stem. But root pressure can pump the water only to a limited height. So the root pressure is possible for pumping the water only in case of small plants. Is it clear to you, students? So root pressure. Mineral ions enter into the root by active transport. Water enters root by osmosis. The above two process develops a positive pressure in the root, due to which the water is transported into the stems. But root pressure is responsible for pushing the water up to a small height. Okay. Now students, we will study the next mechanism, that is nothing but the transpirational pull. Okay. Now let's read that first. Now it's true that root pressure is a dynamic process, but it itself is not sufficient to dry the water to a distance of 400 feet in the trunks of tall trees. So tall trees cannot totally rely on root pressure because it is negligible over there. So we go for another mechanism which is called as a transpiration pull. So I will explain you this transpiration pull now here. Students, here you can see the soil, and you know that the soil is a source for water as well as minerals. So definitely root pressure is happening here, but root pressure can only supply the water to the base of the tree. Now beyond that, if I need to supply water, I need to take the help of transpiration pull. Now what is a transpiration pull? Students, you are aware that the leaves or the aerial part of the plant loses the water in the form of water vapor. So when it loses the water in the form of water vapor by a process of transpiration, there is always a scarcity of water in the leaves. Since there is a scarcity of water in the leaves are always pulling the water from the roots, and the water itself will form a chain and it will slowly move towards the leaves as if a person is drawing the water from a well. Now this pull is called as what you know, transpiration pull. Okay, so let's read here what it is. Water is carried by xylem elements like tracheids and vessels in big trees. Water diffuses from the stomata to the surrounding air. This process is called as transpiration. Loss of one water molecule from stomata causes one water molecules in the tube to move up gradually, resulting in a pull. Is it clear? Now, next slide will explain to you how the transpiration pull works. It is similar to the drinking of a juice with the help of a straw. So, when you suck the straw, the liquid enters your mouth and the empty space in the straw is filled with more liquid. This is how we drink the juice with a straw. Transpiration pull can be compared like this: upward pull by the straw, which makes the drink rise in the straw when we drink the juice through it. Okay students. So now we have completed with the transportation of water. Now we have to study the transportation of food. Now the transportation of food, you know that it takes place with the help of phloem, and transportation of food from the leaves to the different parts of the plant is called as translocation, and this translocation can be explained by pressure flow hypothesis. So now let us see this pressure flow hypothesis. Now students, this is the green leaves. This is a cell of the green leaves. Now here the cell of the green leaves is going to contain a sugar, and the sugar here is sucrose. Now from the leaf cell, the sucrose is transported into the phloem, and this will be an active transport. So in the phloem right now, here you can see many dots here. These are nothing but the sugar molecule. Those are nothing but sucrose. So that means the solute here is more. Now adjacent to the phloem, you can see xylem. Xylem is containing a large amount of water, and the phloem is containing a large amount of solute. So water from the xylem will move into the phloem by a process which is called as osmosis. So can you see the water is entering over here, and here by osmosis the water is entering. So here there will be a higher concentration of solute as well as solvent, that is the water. Okay. Pressure flow hypothesis. As I said, sugar, that is the sucrose, is actively transported from the source, that is the green leaf cells, to the phloem, and water diffuses from the xylem to the phloem by the process of osmosis. So that we discussed here 2 points. Now let us see the further part. Now students, you know that here there is solute as well as solvent, water as well as the sucrose molecules. Now because of which here there is a high pressure gradient. This area has got a high pressure gradient. Now because of the high pressure gradient and the low pressure gradient here, what will happen? The water will move from a high pressure gradient to a low pressure gradient area, and slowly the food will be transported, water and food will be transported here into the sink. What is a sink? Sink is that part where the food is going to be utilized. Okay, so the water and the sucrose molecules both are moving from a high pressure gradient to a low pressure gradient area, and it reaches the sink. Now sink is a non-green part. Can you see? I have taken a fruit over here. It is red in color. So here the fruit is taking up what? The fruit is taking up the sucrose molecules. Okay. So since the sucrose molecules are taken up by the fruit, now here only what will be left now? Only water will be left. So what will happen? Since the water is more here in the phloem now, water will once again diffuse back into the xylem. High hydrostatic pressure is created in the phloem because of sucrose and water. Sugar get transported along the pressure gradient, that is higher pressure gradient to a lower pressure gradient. Sugar will be transported to the sink and water diffuses back into the xylem. So my dear students, this marks the end of transportation of food in case of phloem. So we have completed with transportation in animals and transportation in plants. Now we will move to the next slide, and here we are going to study about excretion in plants. Now, like animals, plants also produce waste products during their life processes. Now this waste product cannot be stored because it can be toxic. So there are different ways in which it is thrown out. Now in case of plants, they do not have as such a particular organ or a system to throw the waste product, because the waste product in plants is produced in a very small amount, okay, as compared to that of the animals, and the waste product is produced very slowly. Now one of the waste product, gaseous waste product or the excretory material you are familiar is carbon dioxide. So how is the carbon dioxide thrown out? The carbon dioxide is thrown out through the tiny pores in the leaves, which are called as stomata. So can you see the stomata here, through which the carbon dioxide, which is a respiratory waste, it is an excretory product which will be thrown out by the plant. Now, some plants also excrete some waste substances into the soil. The root part, they will also throw away some waste into the soil. Yeah. Now, students, you are aware that in case of plants, often the aging leaves, they fall off. The aging leaves become yellow and they fall off. So what does a plant do? The plant tend to store the waste matter in this aging leaves, so that when the aging leaf is going to fall off, at that time even the waste material will be lost along with that leaf. Okay. Now in case of some plants, the waste is in the form of calcium oxalate, and the crystals of calcium oxalates are called as raphides. So you can see the raphides here. This is the raphide. Here I am looking it through the microscope. You can see the raphides are needle shape here, okay, and these are the crystals of calcium oxalate. Now this is usually present in the colocasia leaf and outer skin of onion. Now this since this raphides are needle shape, when we consume the colocasia leaf, we get some irritation, itching sensation, irritation in the throat. It hurts us, okay. So that is because of the excretory product of the plant, which is the crystals of calcium oxalate, which are commonly called as the raphides. Okay. Now whenever you have when you have visited a garden, and just many times when you might have plucked a leaf, you might have seen some white colored milky substance oozing out. That white colored milky substance which oozes out is called as the latex. It is from the latex of the rubber plant we produce rubber. Okay. Now some waste products are stored in the form of resins and gums. Okay. Resins are brown colored sticky substances which are secreted from the bark of the tree. This is the bark of a tree. You can see the resin which is coming out. Okay. Now, the hard transparent resins are principally used as varnishes and adhesives, that like gums, while softer resin, gums and essential oils are more largely used for therapeutic, that is medicinal purpose, and incense, that is good smell, incense stick, you use that. Now some plant waste are very useful to human beings, such as rubber, latex, gums, resin, essential oils like the eucalyptus or the sandalwood oil. All these are the excretory product, but human beings use it for their own purpose, for the production of incense stick and some therapeutic purpose. So students, this marks the end of the excretory system or the excretory product in, I should not say system because they don't have a system, that is it's an excretory product in case of plants. Okay. Now let us look into the assignment questions. You have a write short note on lymph. You have to define lymph. You have to in short describe the lymphatic system and functions of lymph. Root pressure and transpirational pull I hope all of you might have understood root pressure and transpiration full. Explain the process of transportation of food in plants and state the different excretory product in plants and their benefit to human beings. Students, I hope all of you might have understood what was taught today. Thank you, students.